episode of the podcast is being sponsored by my friends over at Real Mushrooms, my friend Jeff Chilton and his son Sky. I interviewed Jeff on one of the earlier episodes of this podcast. Really happy that they're sponsoring this podcast. They sell medicinal mushrooms, things like reishi, chaga, lion's mane, turkey tail, cordyceps. I think more and more people are becoming familiar with the truly amazing benefits of medicinal mushrooms on our physical, our mental, even our spiritual well-being. They're an amazing company. They're one of the few, if any, companies that's not only 100% organic, but 100% mushrooms, and that's really rare. A lot of companies have fillers or additives, or also important, it's not the mycelium that's grown on grain and mixed together, it's the actual mushroom, and that's a really rare thing. It's a really pure product. It's the only product, the medicinal mushroom product that I take. Super happy with them, super happy that they're sponsoring this podcast. If you'd like more information about them, you can check out their website at realmushrooms.com/universe to also receive 25% off of your first order. On this episode of the podcast, I sat down with Suor, or Snow Raven. She is a very interesting woman. She comes from a group of people called the Sakha people in the Siberian Arctic taiga. She's a very talented musician, someone who works with sound. She does these really amazing animal impersonations using the sound, the vibration of animals, of these classic Siberian shamanic instruments like the drum and the mouth harp, which I think she calls humus. We had a really fascinating conversation about her life story, her people, growing up, coming to the U.S., her work with music, and very much, I think, kind of a history and a cosmovision of her people, and also this idea of shamanism. So it was a fascinating conversation. I think I could talk to her, I think, as I mentioned in the podcast, probably for days. It'd be amazing if she comes back on and shares more, but I think and trust you all will get a lot out of this conversation. As always, if you're able to support this podcast, that's a really big help to me. Patreon is a really good way. It's a website you can sign up for as little as $1 a month. There's tiers, different tiers you can sign up for, which also give you guys different things back. Things like early access to shows, bonus material, Q&As. As always, to all of the people supporting that way, thank you very much for your help. And if you're able to do that, thank you in advance. I really like websites like that because they work on this idea of reciprocity. So if you feel like you're gaining something from this podcast, it's a really good way to give back. And if not, always helping with the algorithms is a really big help. So if you're viewing this on Apple Podcast or Spotify, leaving a starred rating and a short review, and if you're viewing this, the video version on YouTube, hitting the subscribe button, turning on the notification bell, and liking the video. And then finally, if you're interested in working with myself and my colleague Marav Artsy, we have our 2026 calendar up now on my website. I'll put a link to that in the show notes, nicotianarustica.org. So we have a number of different dates and locations up. As always, it's a really beautiful opportunity to go deeper into this world of plants, of wisdom, shamanism, knowledge. So there's that opportunity if that resonates. So I think that's it, and without further ado, here is my conversation with Snow Raven.
Running out from the maze, running out of the maze today. Running out from the maze, running out from the maze, running out from the maze today. I'm running out from the maze, running out from the maze, run out of the maze today.
Welcome. We were chatting a bit before we started, and you were introduced to me by a mutual friend of ours, a newer friend of mine, a woman who I interviewed recently. Her name is Trisha Eastman. Lovely lady. I really enjoyed speaking with her, and at the end of that conversation, she recommended that I speak to you. I had already heard of you somehow. Again, I'm not sure exactly how, but I really just enjoyed your music. I hadn't heard you speak before, and so then I listened to a few interviews of you, and I just really enjoyed what you share, and maybe even more than what you shared, how you shared it. So I would imagine some of the audience has heard of you. Maybe they've listened to your music. Maybe they've heard an interview with you. But it's always a big question. But if you could just tell the audience a bit about you, who you are, where you come from, and kind of your story in life that's gotten you to where you are, sitting in front of this beautiful brick wall in New York City.
Hello, Jason, and everybody who is listening to us and dancing with imagination, own imagination. My name is Snow Raven, and that's a spiritual and stage name that I accepted in 2020 during very harsh time in the world during COVID. In Sakha language, it sounds Suor, and that name was given by a very powerful woman back in my homeland. My homeland is very snowy, cold during the winter time, extremely cold place called Republic of Sakha, Yakutia. That's an official name, but us Sakha people, we call it as a Sakha Sir. Sir, it's land. Sakha, it's our name. And perhaps you heard the word Yakut or Yakutian people. Those are more official name, and you can find more information on the internet about us as a Yakut people. We are one of the indigenous tribes in Arctic Siberia, and there are many other tribes there, reindeer herders. We are horse herders, and genetically we are connected to Mongolians and also reindeer herders. So I was born in that very unique place, in a small village with 600 people at that time. Today that number unfortunately is going down. Elders are passing away, youth seeks an education and move to the cities. And I moved to the United States 8 years ago. I came here following my ancestral voice, if you will. I've been following music. As a musician and performer, singer, I've been always magnified or hypnotized by the sound, and my inner voice, or I would say voice of my ancestors, told me, go to the west, and that's how I came to the United States. I loved singing. My grandmother taught me how to sing when I was 3 years old, and I thought singing, it's part of life. It's the part of being human, something natural. I never thought that it's going to be my profession, but about 13 years ago I accepted it. I recognized that this is my path, and it's a beautiful path, but it has some sacrifice in it. To be an artist, touring, constantly dancing with a mystery of art, mystery of human consciousness and expression. So that's what I truly honor, and that's what I follow, and I really love bringing voice of our ancestors. And my ancestors went through very harsh conditions of the change of life, the harsh conditions of nature, because the winters can go to minus 96 Fahrenheit. That was a world record. 72 Celsius. And on the contrary, during the summertime, it gets really, really hot. It gets extremely hot, and there are a lot of mosquitoes. Very short summers, long winters, and my ancestors learned how to survive, and I'm sure all of our ancestors did that, and therefore we're sitting here. We're seeing each other here through the screen, all this technology that we invented, and this brick wall. So I am in New York right now, and my soul constantly visits my homeland, and my body also has been visiting my homeland after I got my green card. So it's been very nice to return home after 7 years being apart. My family lives there, my mother, 3 young sisters. So it's been a very nice journey being a musician and singer, and bringing the voice of that far remote part of the earth to the western side of the world.
Beautiful. You spoke a lot of your ancestors and your people. Forgive my pronunciation if it's incorrect, but the Sakha and the Sakha Sior, the land that you come from. Can you speak a little bit about like if you're familiar with their cosmology, the origin stories? Like I think for so many people it's such a remote part of the world. Like I think one of the first things the mind goes is like, how did the people arrive there? What are their stories? Like where do they say they came from? How did they end up in this land, which I think from the outside seems quite harsh. Although at the same time, I spent a long time in the Amazon, and I think a lot of people feel the same way about the Amazon, that it's like a very harsh environment, and yet to the people who live there, it's home. It's actually very gentle in a way. I mean, it has a harshness too, but can you speak a little bit about that kind of cosmovision, or anything you know about like the origin of your people?
So Sakha people, there are many hypotheses where we come from, when, how we appeared there in that very uncomfortable place to live, and why. So those questions been very like a tickling of the mind of scientists, actually local scientists, because among Sakha people there are a lot of well-educated people, and as we are part of Russia, we also absorbed Russian educational system, and I would say even Soviet Union educational system, which was a really powerful educational system, in my opinion. And so those scientists, I've read certain books, and I also heard elders telling the stories, but it all comes into the kind of arguments. There is a full agreement of where we come from, because our stories were till very recent time, it was passed orally. So we were not writing it, archiving it. So archive was all in the memory of genes or in the blood, and the way the great masters of storytelling were expressing it through Olongho. So Olongho, it's one of the chef-d'oeuvre masterpieces of the UNESCO organization. So it's a protected as a form of traditional storytelling of Sakha people. It's a heroic epic storytelling, and it starts from the birth of the universe, about how the deities of the higher realm created the three worlds. The higher realm, from the higher realm, part of them went to the lower realm, which is underground, lower world, and what is between that created three worlds. A third middle world. So what is between higher world and the lower world is called Ortodoidu, and that's where we believe Sakha people live, and all spirits of nature, tangible world, and the lower world, it's the place of hostile spirits, and the higher realm, higher world, it's the place of deities. And there is Urungartoyon, which is the ultimate, the creator. He lives on the 12th sky, we believe. The higher realm also has a hierarchy, like the levels of the sky. And that worldview is quite often became as a structure of Olongho. All the actions in Olongho happens in those three worlds. And it all starts from creation of the universe, how the Urung Artoyan created the universe, and then it goes into the creation of the lower world, middle world, and the battle between darkness and light. And it has many, many characters. So the storyteller, Olonghohut person who falls into trance and tells that story, quite often those are the shamans who are the masters of the world, masters of the sounds, masters of shape-shifting. They can go for 2 days to 2 nights, traditional, like a non-stop. It was the only one entertainment, and people would be gathered and play with their imagination. There were no electricity, and it was a very beautiful time where the human's body was expressing fully in order to come up with the story where the Sakha people came from. And because it was quite often as an improvisation, there were no written Olongho. It was just a pure channeling, pure improvisational state, where the Olonghohut becomes an intermediary, like someone who passes the knowledge from the unknown, unseen world to the human's world. And so Olongho carries, we believe, a lot of knowledge, deep, not only philosophical, mythological, but also there are scientists telling we need to really learn about Olongho as a modern society in order to learn where we come from. So this is one of the great sources almost to enter to the raw consciousness of the shamans who were falling into trance. And at that time there were no writing as a skill. It was remembrance. So it would be passed from one generation to another, and the structure of Olongho would be passed, but the characters would be shifting, and it totally depends on the master of the storytelling, which characters they turn into and shape shift. It's like a theater of one person. And then later there were we'll call it intelligence of Sakha people, and those writers, literature, the fathers of Sakha literature. One of them, Platon Oyunsky, he wrote this big, huge book called Juluruyer Njurgunbader. It's Olongho, heroic storytelling, about Nurgun Batur, Nurgun warrior, and this whole cosmology of Sakha people lives there. So this became our almost, how do I say, compass to learn about ourselves. It's the there are also many other Olongho books, but that one is the most powerful. And then we learn it as in the school. I learned it in the school, just fraction of it, because it's a long, big storytelling. That's one of the hypotheses. Another one is there is also there are discussions that we genetically are connected to Mongolians, and we came as a part of Mongolian people who ran away during the fight to find more safe place, and that's how they ended up going towards north, where perhaps they won't be conquered or they won't be reached. So they went far, far north and came, and there were reindeer herders, local people who already were living there. And then they assimilated and became Sakha people. So that's one of the hypotheses. Another hypothesis I also learned is we are autochthonly in Russian, autochthonous, or there's, I don't know in English. It means that we were already living there, because one of the latest archaeological discoveries came up with, we found remaining of Sakha cattle. So Sakha people are horse herders, but they also had a cattle, but a very specific type of horse and cattle. They don't exist anywhere but in Sakha. And those cattle were dated really, really long time ago, even like 10,000 years ago, meaning that we were in that land way before even Mongolians. So that's very interesting to see that there are still many discussions, but I think in the future, if we have more budget to explore permafrost, because our land basically underneath there is a permafrost. It's on the permafrost, and I say it's the things that are underneath are well preserved. So I think in the future we will discover more truths about ourselves. But now there are more of discussions, more of I think the merge between mythology and the merge between mythology and science, such as archaeology and doing a genetic researches would help Sakha people to truly understand who we are, where we come from, which I hope can happen pretty soon. So our belief system is a shamanism, and we call it Oyunnahan, and everything, all the cosmology, understanding of the world, all comes from shamanism. And the shamanism in Sakha, it's very unique. In the entire Arctic Circle, shamans don't take any substances to fall into trance. It's something that happens to shamans, to people as energy going through the body, and if body is not ready, it reacts, and it's quite often connected to mental health issues, and it comes from the environment. So it's an environment, cosmos, that somehow affects people's consciousness who live there, and then that's why there were a lot of shamans in before 17th century, before Russians discovered us. Shamans were those people were gifted people, and it was a necessity to have them because they're healers of the wounded, sick ones, and the community. And there are those who communicate with spirits of unseen worlds. So, and I think cosmology comes from the raw state of like raw openness of the human consciousness, because the environment pushes you to be that way, and then it's the whole another topic that I love talking about. I really enjoy learning about shamanism because it's endless. It's almost like learning the relationship of human being with nature, with environment, and the entire cosmos. It's like a brain learning about itself.
Thank you for that beautiful share. There's so many things so many threads I could take from there. I think it's so fascinating. I mean, as I mentioned, I think a bit before we started recording, I spent a long time in the Peruvian Amazon, and I find it very fascinating, and I think it gives a lot of credence to these cosmologies, these mythologies, and I think even that's a bad word, mythology, because it gives it a sense that it's not real. And in many of the Amazonian cosmovisions that I worked with, they have essentially the exact same story. They have this idea that there is 12 dimensions of time and space in the upper realm. They also have this idea of 3 realms, much like the primordial tree, the roots going into the underworld, the trunk in the lived world, the experience world, and the branches going into the heavenly realm. And in that heavenly realm, the 12 dimensions of time and space, and many of these people did work with plants, but in that same way of, I think very beautifully, that idea of the raw openness of human consciousness. And I think there is, in a way, as you're kind of alluding to, like a universal truth that can be experienced when our consciousness is very open. I mean, that's even the idea behind Creator, God, truth, oneness, like that we all do have access to that knowledge. There's so many things I'd love to pick your brain more about that, but kind of going back, you mentioned in the beginning, like the Sakha people potentially being related to Mongolians or the reindeer people. And the reindeer people I also spent some time with when I was in Mongolia, a group of people called the Sakha people. I'm really fascinated by those cultures, and I mean, even now I'm watching a series on Marco Polo and his travels into Mongolia, and one of the things I was just reminded of was this very special relationship, and you briefly mentioned it, of the horse, and for the Mongolian people, the reindeer, for obviously the reindeer people. And I think a lot of people understand, like, obviously the horse was a form of travel. It allowed the Mongols to have probably the largest land empire in the history of the world, which I think a lot of people forget about. I mean, just in a way, the magnificence of what they were able to achieve. But also, I think there's a real spiritual significance to the horse and to the reindeer. Even the instruments that can be made of it, the spiritual connection, the sound, the rhythm, the cadence. Is that something you can speak about? Because I think some people are maybe familiar with the connection to animals, maybe more in a spiritual sense, but it's something that's a bit vague. I mean, people have dogs and they feel like a very deep connection to them, but I think there's even maybe something a bit more of this relationship that some people can have to something like a horse or reindeer, that there's a very deep connection to that. I know it's a little bit of a vague question, but can you speak a bit about that?
Well, we say Sakha people survived because of the horse. We truly honor and respect the spirit of horse, this majestic, magnificent, so extremely smart and resilient animal who's widespread around the world. And a Sakha type of horse that survive minus 96 Fahrenheit. It's incredible how they adopted in this harsh environment, and I think without horse, we would have either disappear or be minority. Today we're not minority anymore. We exceeded 500,000 by quantity of population, and it's because of horse. Because horse was everything to Sakha people. Not only transportation, but it also was a clothing. It was the leather was used also for the house, as a blanket, as a mattress. The hair was used to create a robe, tail or hair, and there's a special technique of creating it, and then that robe would be used for hunting tools, for creating a vessel. So we have Yhyakh. It's a vessel that is created from birch tree bark, and we call it twas, and we would assemble the details made from twas by tying it in a very beautiful way by the horsehair. And then it also would be very meditative because it ties in a certain way, and it has patterns in it. Also, horse was a source of food. If people, I think, you living in this harsh environment, you are not 100%, could be lucky for hunting. So people were fishing and hunting, but also we had a cattle and horse. I don't know when the cattle came. According to this archaeological discoveries, it feels like it was there for quite a long time. And horse also was used as a source of food, and also we milk them and create kummus, the source of probiotic. And kummus, it's really powerful beverage. I would say it's a fermented milk, right? And it has a little percentage of the alcohol. Also, horse, we have a deity of horse called Yhyakh, Ayu. Ayi means deity. And then there's this respectful, more spiritual name for the horse, Yhyakh. And we worship also Yhyakh Ayi. And we believe it has a lot of masculine power. There's Alam Alaksan Khotun, one of the also deities. It comes as a cattle, and it represents more of a feminine energy, and the horse, it's more of a protector of masculine energy. There are so many songs dedicated to the horse, and there is even a genre called the gereng, or singing, that has a horse rhythm in it, and that comes from travelers who would go from one settlement to another, and then our settlements were in the middle of deep taiga, in the middle of nowhere, in a deep forest, when there's usually an openness, like a valley, but it's usually round and it has a lake in it. And our people would find those places and then create their settlement. There are the winter settlements and summer settlements. And in order to travel to your neighbor, it might take several days on horseback. So the traveler on a horse would be riding and tuning, like tapping with the rhythm of horse galloping, and create songs. So it was a beautiful unity between human being and animal. So horse was not only a physical source for survival, but also a spiritual. It was supporting my people along long cold winters, hot summers. And it also was helping to transport, right? To build houses. Agriculture came later with Russians. We also create an instrument, which is perhaps very, very, when you went to Mongolia, you heard the sound of marinkhur. It's a string instrument, almost like a traditional violin. Ours is very similar to marinkhur. The string is made from horsehair, and we call it krumpa. And the strings that rub against each other, it reminds almost a polyphonic singing of people during a Yhyakh circle dance, or Yhyakh, which is an individual song of making a song out of poetry as an improvisational poetry. It's quite often used for prayers, for alkas, for connecting to the spirits, and we have all kind of spirits, and there are all kind of special ceremonies, and at the beginning of each ceremony there's usually a Yhyakh. That's a form of self-expression, and krumpa, that instrument, carries the tones and timbre and color of the sounds. It basically mimics human's voice too. So horse being such a powerful animal, and it can also survive in a minus 96 in wilderness. Horse is not like a cattle that needs a warm house, like a cow house. We'll call it choton. You just let them go during the winter time, and they roam, and they go in wilderness and feed themselves. They can dig underneath snow and eat a grass, and they sleep standing because it's very cold. So they adopted themselves to help human beings to survive, and there is this beautiful connection between us and Yhyakh, i.e. reindeers. They were also transportation, clothing, food, but also a house. So nomadic reindeer herders such as Chukchi people, Yukagir, Evenk, those people still are nomadic, still follow reindeer in a vast tundra land, and their houses, because they're nomadic, it's portable, and it's made from reindeer leather. Can you imagine? And women are builders of the house. They take care of installing and deinstalling chum. It's called as a chum, or yaranga in Russian. I think without reindeer, there won't be such a people like Yakutia and Yhyakh people. I deeply bow to those animals that are wild, but they never betrayed, or they never got disconnected from human beings. There's somehow this deep bond between those big animals, and they are half wild and half domesticated. They didn't also betray their freedom. They can go in a wilderness and survive there without a human support. So it's incredible to know that there's this beautiful sacred thread, like a connection between all living beings. In this case, I totally can feel, experience in my bones one of the powerful saying, it means a human being is a child of nature. So it's us who follow animals, right? So that's it's us who we're not like taking over and saying, we are the lords of this land. No, there's reindeer herders. They follow reindeers, and it's their worldview. It's their cosmology, and then it's their lifestyle. So that's very beautiful to experience that, to be among those people, to be born in that land.
Yesterday, I'm coming from Virginia right now, and yesterday I was in a place called Monticello, which was the home of Thomas Jefferson, who was the third president of this country. A very fascinating man, and it was very interesting because he was very erudite, he was very educated, he drew a lot upon the French intellectual Enlightenment movement to really set the foundations of, I think some of you use this word, freedoms of this country. And it was very interesting because he was surrounded by books. I mean, he has quotes of like, all you need are books in life, the things like that. And yet at the same time, he and many of the other founding fathers of this country, they also very much drew upon nature and the power of nature. I think it was something that very much drew them to this land, was this great expanse, this openness, this still rawness of something that wasn't civilized or domesticated, that there was still power in the land. And for many of them, they found that power of nature actually to be the highest teacher. It was interesting also when I was in Mongolia. I don't remember the exact name, but it was near one of the places of these Satan people, and I was probably naively unprepared at one point, and I was at the top of this mountain, and my gear was not sufficient for the raw power of the nature, and I guess I would describe it as a near-death experience. I mean, the temperature dropped tremendously that night, and I was so cold, and and all of this fear, this primal fear began to arise, and it went on for a long time because it was a long night, and at one point I did think I would die, that my body wouldn't be able to withstand that, and in that moment there was this great peace that came over me, and just this warmth that arose and completely enveloped my entire body, and it was like being in a cradle and being rocked to sleep, and I woke the next day, and I remember looking upon this great expanse, and I think that was the first time in my life where I sensed on a deeper level the power of nature, the power of God, and where a philosophy like shamanism could have arisen from. Could you speak, you touched briefly upon it, but could you speak a bit more about that connection to nature, the expanse, the power, the reverence, the teacher that nature can offer? I think so many people, we've become very removed from that. We become very comfortable in our cities and our environments, which certainly can teach a lot. But I think there's also a certain suffering, and I think the more we potentially get disconnected from that power, that wisdom, that deep beauty and essence, we really suffer. And I know the Saha people have a very deep connection to nature. They draw a lot upon that wisdom. Is that something you can speak a bit more about?
Yeah. The I think the shamanism or Yhyakh is a phenomena that existed, like being born around the world, where there were human beings. Can I call it as a Homo sapiens, or even it was before Homo sapiens? But it's definitely something that the forces of nature impact, to so to speak, the brain, and I don't know what level of intelligence at that time was like. That there's no an exact date, the date of the birth of shamanism, but it's something that not hacks, but it goes through the brain, that also spreads all over the body. And then we believe that if the energy is not handled by the physical body, because we believe the body is like a vessel, it handles a lot of energy, it allows the energy to flow, and the reaction of the physical body to the energy that passes through could be really harsh, and the symptoms at the time, where like before Russians came, and how the shamanism, the shamanic diseases were described, they were very similar to mental health, like schizophrenia, bipolar, epilepsy, seizures, all of this diagnosis that I learned from the Western side of the world, were a common in Sakha, among the Sakha culture, till even nowadays. We do have some modern manifestations of that phenomena, and then we have modern shamans, or the awakened and gifted ones among even youth. but it becomes more rare. It became more rare. It was very, very spread before the 17th century. It was even described that each family had their own shaman, like a family member. One of the family members was a shaman. But if I go back to if I try to imagine how would that be, like, what is it, this shamanism? What kind of phenomena is that? It's imagine whatever stage or level of the development of the human brain is. Is it before Homo sapiens or after we call it as a Homo sapiens, after we recognize ourselves as a human beings, being a self-conscious? It is definitely something that we as a human beings, everyone on the planet Earth, carry that. I believe personally that we all are capable of falling into trance and almost like a download data from the cosmos. And in an ancient time, before the human language was created, there was a primordial sounds, the sounds that, so to speak, human beings were communicating with each other. And I think it's almost, for me, as the earth had a human's body, the earth would sing or dance or do do sound through a human's body. The reason I say that, because there are many interesting techniques that shamans do in order to fall into trance, such as mimicking birds and animal sounds. It's literally a summoning their totem animal, and it reminds me when the first time the human beings they heard the sound of birds, or they heard the sound of the animal, and then they can kind of respond to that. They can understand their language. For some reason, their brain can understand and feel what each sound means. And they would, I think in the ancient time, they would summon the superpower of animals when they do the mimicking of birds and animal sounds, and which is, I also learned from my own culture, from shamanism, from Yhyakh. Shamans would awaken the superpower of their totem animal in order to travel between the realms, in order to look for a stolen soul. And the sickness usually comes with the understanding of, we say it as, oh, soul was stolen from a human, and it could be hidden quite often in the underground. And shamans who are powerful enough, there are like 12 different types of like hierarchy of the shamans, and the shamans of the 12 skies, they can go to also descend to the underground and find that stolen soul. And sometimes in the stories you can hear how the soul is hidden in the nostril of the bull. It's very, very psychedelic, very very unique. And I think after, when the human language was invented, then the shamans would describe their stories, their experiences beyond this reality, and they would describe it in a very artistic way, such as a long hall, such as chantings and dancing, turning into animal. There are a lot of stories where the shamans would turn into animal and people would literally like witness, they would see with their naked eye. There are a lot of hypnosis that was used during the ceremonies, and people who are there, they would simultaneously see one, like the same thing at the same time. Shamans would shock people by taking their heart or liver out and eat it in front of people, or make a dead owl alive and make it fly, or invite a bear or wolf inside of the house, or bring the water through the windows and people will see the fish flying in the water. So there were a lot of Kharachbaita. It's a special technique. I would call it as a hypnosis. And again, is it some force, like is the shaman that makes, let's say, 5 or 10 people in the area to see the same thing, somehow impacts their brain and tune them, make them to believe, to see like one thing at the same time, or it is really happening and people are really seeing it. Who knows? Maybe shamans can take those people into the journey to another realm, like a parallel world where all of these incredible, unbelievable things are, they can happen. So I'm very, very interested in shamanism. There are many ways to experience that, through mind, through your body, and it always ends up almost like recognizing your soul. It's a soul journey. It's very beautiful, innate, perhaps, skill that each person has. And I think we all have those journeys throughout the day. Can you feel how your reality changes when you're angry? Or when you are in shock? Or when you are in fear? Or when you are joyful? So I think we all kind of experiencing it at some degree as a human being. But the shamans are the gifted ones, the chosen ones, we call them. And in fact, they have no choice. That's why they're chosen one. They have to go through this special process of eteni, which is rite of passage for the future shaman. It can take several months or it can take years, depending on the power of shaman. And there are 12 different levels. Each level represents sky, where the shaman can go, and then there are certain functions or skills the shamans have. For example, the shamans of 12 sky, they can cure people, but also they can communicate with extraterrestrials. But the shaman of the 6th sky or 3rd sky, they cannot communicate with extraterrestrials if they're not on the 12th sky. There are a lot of rules in shamanism. It's a burden. Shaman is the person who serves community, who doesn't live own life anymore. It's not the same anymore, and that's the process of transformation. It's the hardest one for the future shaman. And during Soviet Union, there were some persecutions of shamans. 1930 was horrible for the gifted people in my homeland. Also, turning people into Christians in 17th century. Those waves impacted my culture, but shamans, they never stopped healing people. They were even secretly seeing people and helping them, even when their drums were taken away and their regalia were burned down. So they were able to find a way to heal sick ones. And that's how it survived. And I think as a phenomena, it exists around the world. And I wonder, is it something that came all the way from Africa, if we believe that the humanity came out of Africa and then went, up to the Eurasian, part of it went through the Asia, part of it went to the European part of the continent, and there are some hypotheses that people from Arctic Siberian area went through the Bering Strait and went to American continent and went down to South America and then went up to the Caribbean. So there's this whole another interesting hypothesis of the human migration and spread of human population throughout this earth. And I always wonder, is that, the shamanism was born in Africa and then they all had it in their memory, or it's something necessary, it's an innate skill, and no matter what, no matter what adaptation you go, it gives you tools for adaptation, and it exists in many cultures. There's this heartbeat of shamanism that didn't change, and then there are some different cultural uniqueness to that, and I think it comes from the environment where people live long enough, so is it something that happened simultaneously one time after people already were spread? So those questions been visiting my mind quite often, and I try to find some academic information, but there's also this feeling of it, the most precious thing when you experience the rawness of being a human and our consciousness, and it could be very personal, but I think that's the whole point. It's everyone is experiencing their own universe, they're creator of their own universe. They are uniquely experiencing it, but when we come together, that's where the magic happens. That's where we can visit each other's universes and learn from each other and find some common truths, maybe, and maybe in the future, if people are globally connected and if we cultivate somehow the way that we can be connected without devices, maybe telepathically, maybe artistically, who knows what this human's body stores, how many treasures, and maybe in the future we can find out it solid, like a common truth that we all experience. And I think the preciousness of life lies in the uniqueness of each person.
Beautifully said. You mentioned so many qualities of this idea of a shaman, and even that word, it comes from close to where you are, that idea of sama, to know, and even I think that is so fascinating, because often all over the world, as you were mentioning, this idea of a shaman or someone, it usually translates to some idea of someone who has wisdom, someone who has knowledge. And just these all of these qualities you mentioned, this kind of initiatory, this long path of being burdened, which I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize. They often look at it as something like fun and nice, and I want to do that, but usually there's a deep heaviness to it that involves suffering and deprivation, and these ideas of healing and self-healing, and healing others. And you mentioned these ideas of like these archetypal battles between light and dark, and death and rebirth, and soul retrieval, and these qualities of like masters of sound, masters of shape-shifting, turning into animals, being able to hypnotize, being able to kind of shake someone's worldview, maybe through these theatrical means, this deep communion with plants, with nature, with animals. One of the really fascinating things that you mentioned, which I think, and I think many of those things people may be familiar with, but I think one of the really fascinating things you mentioned, which I don't think a lot of people are, when you were describing these 12 dimensions, that you were actually saying on the 12th dimension, the highest dimension, was this ability to communicate with extraterrestrials, which is one way of looking at it. And in other cosmovisions, they may speak of communicating with God or spirits, or these beings of higher intelligence, and they often even put them to very specific star systems, which is something very, very fascinating too. And that's what an extraterrestrial is, something that's not of this earth, which is a very fascinating like thing that people are tapping into. Are you able to speak any more about that? Because I think that's such a fascinating topic, which a lot of people just aren't familiar with. That the kind of this highest level of what you were describing, this 12th dimension, was the ability to communicate with extraterrestrials.
Yeah, I do not know much about it, but I know that Save, one of the 12 sky shaman, who's a Tungus shaman, Yhyakh, one of the ranger herders shaman. I had an honor to meet him, and I actually had a permission from the spirits to play my drum through him. In 2000, was it in 2009? Yeah, it was in 2009. No. Oh. Yeah, in 2009. Yeah. I was part of documentary movie crew, and they were filming about shamanism around the world. And Save at that time was very well known, one of the famous shamans in Yakutia. And he lived pretty far away, isolated place. You have to go from capital on a plane, and then on a car. It's off-road, and we had a ceremony with him. And he quite often comes in my own experiences. He guides me, and I had very powerful experience with him. He not only gave me permission to play drum, but also there was something involved with a sickness. I don't want to talk about it, but it's very, very intimate. But he said, I so in the future you will have a sickness, very, very powerful one. And he said, healed it, and then he did a special ceremony for that, involved with needle, like swallowing needle with white thread in it and throwing it up. So it was very powerful, intimate connection with him. And he was talking about how the 12 sky shamans, they communicate with aliens, extraterrestrials. And he said, men can talk only to men, gender of aliens, and women can talk to only women. That was the only one information that I heard from him. But there are a lot of stories. Even people who are not shamans can see extraterrestrials in Sakha. Even my grandfather, he told me that he saw it. Yeah, it might be because of the uniqueness of the place. It's not much populated, and it's a vast land, or it's really something that people would just uniquely experience, hallucinate. Who knows? I never seen an extraterrestrial in my life, but I've been experiencing lately their presence, like there's something bigger than us. And the 12 sky shamans can also cure people. So there are many types of techniques, and quite often shamans, they can heal certain type of sickness. Like someone is a bone adjuster, someone can do non-surgical operation, someone can do Vosruyu method, and that is they swallow the spirit Abah, spirit of sickness, and they trap that spirit inside of the belly, and then the belly becomes huge, swollen, and then after a while they have to create a special trapper, like a place to trap, and then take that Abah out. It's a cleansing part, and lock it in that trap. So it's very dangerous. I've seen another shaman woman who was doing a collective cleansing. She was talking to people, and while she was talking, she would do a lot of she would bring out a lot of mucus to the glass jar, and her glass jar was about 1 liter, and during the session, I don't remember, it was 2 hours or 3 hours, but the half of the jar was full by her mucus, and it was like a greenish gray. This was like a sickness of the collective consciousness, and she was literally like doing as a talk, but also showing it to people. There was something visual for the people happening, and it's not possible to take so much of the mucus out for such a short period of time. My uncle also broke his arm, and my mother actually she's seen one ceremony that shaman woman from my village did it for my uncle, and then she also had the same method. She would take a lot of mucus out, like sucking in the sickness, and then throw out a lot of mucus. And my mom also described it as like a violet color, gray, green. And after 3 days, his broken arm that was inflamed became healthy, like it started to heal. And there are herbalists A lot of shamans, they can use the healing power of plants. One of them, well-known, Nikan Oyun. Oyun means shaman. It's a man shaman, right? Oyun. And Udagan, it's a woman shaman, shamaness. So Nikan is Oyun, and he's perhaps one of the most popular, like one of the most well-known shamans among young people now. And he passed away, of course. He was living in he was living in 20th century. But he died in his 100. Like, he went over 100 years. He was still healing people at that age, right before he died, and very light in movement, running, jumping, had a lot of energy. And I watched some documentary movie, I was crying, like, I wish I met him, in my life. I wish I can do time traveling and could ask questions. I would love to learn from him. But people say Nikan Oyun, he comes to people's dreams, and the modern herbalists, Sakha herbalists, they actually come with special recipes for healing, saying that Nikan came into their dreams and shared the knowledge. So there's also an experience through the dreams. And there was a shaman girl, Udaran. She was living in our modern time, and she was a big fan of Beyonce, Rihanna. She was a city girl, and all of a sudden, and she was a singer, famous singer. So I knew her, but then all of a sudden we heard a sad news that she died at the age 18. And then after 5 years or so, her mother came up with interviews saying that she was actually Udaran, and she was secretly healing people. And her story is incredible. Like, her rite of passage was very, very similar to the rite of passage of the great shamans. And she was working with the Ministry of Sport. She was working with detectives. She was working with government at that very early age. But she passed away. There are great shamans of Sakha that I would love to learn more and bring more information about them. There are some books talking about their biography, and I would like to translate it into English and share with Western world. Kind of create a platform within my community where people can learn about shamanism in general, but specifically Arctic shamanism, because there are other reindeer herders. They have their shamans. They say actually Tungus shaman is more powerful than Sakha shaman, and Udagan, a woman shaman, is more powerful than Oyun, a man shaman. So I guess Tungus woman shaman is the most powerful, logically. But there was always a competition between shamans, and also an agreement between shamans. They would say, "Oh, I can't cure your disease. You can go to him because he specializes." It's almost like the medical system that we have today, but it was definitely not a pharmaceutical. It was very mysterious. And I really would like to learn about that more. I think I would be learning about it till my death, because it's endless. There's so many fascinating stories, and because it's almost hides in the philosophy and mythology. It's hard to prove anything, and that's why I think it's even more interesting. And I would like to open the door to Arctic Siberian shamanism, particularly Sakha shamanism, through music, but also through, bringing more material. I think with modern technologies, it could be easier, faster to do, and cheaper.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. That's beautiful. I think I could pick your mind for hours. Kind of moving on to more personal to you. So you're a singer. You described yourself as an artist, and how did that form in your life? I mean, also within where you're from, or even as you were describing, like a shaman, it's a certain role. Is there also a role of a singer? Like it's a path that's been forged by others that you kind of adopted that, or is it something that you discovered more on your own? And what was that path like of you, like really finding your voice, working with these sounds of nature, of animals? Like how did that form into what you do? Because you do something very beautiful and I think very unique as well.
Thank you. I think art is artistic expression. It's part of shamanism. It's one little piece of puzzle. And if you look at the shamanism, the way the shamans would fall into trance quite often comes with breathing movement, tapping rhythm, drumming, and doing sounds and singing. So I think the entertainment industry that I am in, it's actually monetized that skill of human beings, and chopped it, put it into formula or whatever that human consciousness can easily eat it, chew it. But I think the ancestry, the root of entertainment, it goes all the way to shamanism, and that's why the music that I do, it is inspired from the stories about shamanism, from the wisdom that comes from there, and I believe that the rhythms and tones that are woven into the traditional songs, they also come from the environment. So I can say I'm just lucky to be born in that land, even going through these harsh conditions and surviving out there. For me, it was just normal reality, and I was born in a very warm house. My grandfather built that house, and I already was born in the time of electricity, and we still don't have a heating system. It's our village burns coal, and the houses, they have fireplace. So my grandfather's house heated by fireplace. So I really feel honored, and I feel this responsibility to bring Sakha, the voice of my ancestors, the rhythm that comes from the environment, from that very special land, the silence where the sounds been born from the special species, the animals and birds, our little and big brothers and sisters. All of these tones, frequencies from that side of the world, as a memory in my blood, in my cells, in my mind, they being manifested as a music. And I use also a modern technology. I'm currently learning about life looping, and I've been doing this year tour specifically with life looping, and was like inviting my ancestors in and bringing their unique voices, almost like a shape shifting and multiplying myself, turning into animal. And it's a lot of fun, but also it's very deep. It's allows me, first of all, to constantly open up something in myself, or learning about the mystery of art. It almost feels like I expand the universe that I'm carrying within me, and through visual and sound, I can take people to my universe, and that universe is all created from my childhood experience and something that I learned from elder, from the environment, from nature. So it's very nice journey. And I also learn from the Western elders, from communities here, from conscious communities, a lot of interesting tools, a lot of more of how to survive in matrix, like how to deliver message. There are tools for delivering messages, delivering knowledge and wisdom, and make it accessible to people. I think the disconnection from the nature that humankind is experiencing now, it's devastating. It's about frequency that changed. There's still a heartbeat. I can hear the heartbeat of the earth under the asphalt cement, but because it's covered, it just it has a distortion in a frequency. So we're not receiving. It feels like we're not receiving fully the power of that earth constantly gives us. And as we are children of Mother Earth, Yhyakh, we are connected. Even living in the city, we are connected. As long as we breathe the oxygen that is created by planktons and trees and many others, we are connected to the web of life. And our soul, I think this is all part of something big. And I think today we're just experiencing this crisis of not receiving clean water, clean, not polluted air, nutritious food, nutritious soil. All of that plays huge role, but also we're experiencing this mental health crisis. It's almost, we kind of lost the soul connection, the belief system that once our ancestors cultivated within them to survive. And then they directly learned from nature, from the stars. They were very observative. So we we trust now scientists, we trust now government, we trust now world leaders. But also, I think we need to awaken our own leader, own inner healer, inner teacher, our sensibility, 5 and beyond senses that we all carry, that will allow us to navigate ourselves during this very shaky time. And human beings went through many shaky times. It comes as a cycles. So in a bigger perspective, it just feels slow, like we're experiencing it right now. But I believe that human being will figure this out. Like we always learn. It's the question, how soon, and is it going to be from our own pain and suffering, or learning, seeing it through. So yeah, so I feel music, art, creativity at any form can play a huge role for that, for paradigm shift, and for human being learning how to basically survive.
I heard one of the interesting things. I was listening to another interview, and you said you at the same time you had a lot of hope because of this idea of the kind of the decentralization of education, and we do live in a very unique time where we do have the ability to communicate with people through different cultures and different cosmovisions. We spoke about this idea that people have become very disconnected to nature, and kind of the detriment of that, and even use this word mental health crisis. Do you find, or have you seen, like, things that people can draw upon? I mean, because you do have such a unique life story in a more Western kind of worldview or cosmovision. I think so many people long to go back to nature. Even you mentioned this idea of like conscious communities, or like there's a deep longing in humans, which is very interesting because even, I bring this up again, but like in the Amazon, you have these cosmovisions, these mythologies, these legends that the reason humans are suffering is because we, on the deepest level, we've forgotten who we are and where we come from. And I think so many people do feel lost. They feel orphaned from a society or a culture or a way of being, a wisdom tradition. They feel isolated from nature. There's a longing to go back, and yet many people, I think, feel stuck. What do you think are ways that people can reconnect in that way? I mean, through education, through sound. I think that's something that you're doing that's so powerful. Do you have any ideas? And I think being in a place like New York, like you've now been exposed to so much and so many different people. Like, what do you sense when you see people? What do you see, and what do you see that are ways that people can reconnect?
Before I answer that question, can I turn off my soup? I'll be back.
we'll start to wrap up here too, because I know it's getting late for you as well.
I'm enjoying this so much. um, you said one of the key words, education. I think in the modern life we have now enough technology to share our experiences, and the more disconnected we become, the more connected, the more yearning for connection happen. It will happen because it's all the time the dance of two opposite energies. As a law of universe, in my personal opinion and how I experience life. I think human species, we always try to find out the way to evolve, survive, and sharing our unique experiences. Now, we have such technology as the internet, we have smartphones, so basically we have access to people's consciousness. That's what marketing does. That's what social media does. Like social media opened up experiences and talents, different lifestyles of the world, but also taken away the real communication. But I think the technology is like a knife. There's always a human being that with special intention. You can kill with that knife or carve, create. So it's totally dependent on us, and I think what matters is how to use that tool. Like, what is the intention behind? And I think we naturally learn from our mistake. We naturally see sunlight like plants, and I have more of a hope for humanity that through shared experience, through education being decentralized, through platforms being decentralized, we can actually learn about ourselves, because every person is so unique, and it's hard to make everybody on planet Earth to experience the same, and it's impossible. And I think learning who we are as a human being through learning each person's experiences, not denying it, not saying, oh, you are, we disregard your experience, or this is not important. I think every person's life and their experience is important. Every knowledge, every wisdom that they carry is important. There's this risk that we become copies of copies. We, without experiencing somebody's story, become part of your life. But I think cultivating that experience, like something that comes out uniquely from you, that is very, very important. And I think with rays of AI era, it also will accelerate human being to create within themselves and blossom as a flower from inside out, rather than, okay, I like this one, I'm gonna grab it and use it for my art, or okay, this is cool experience, okay, this is gonna be part of my life. Instead of doing like that, you can learn, but also it's very important to cultivate this skill to I guess self-realization, giving more educational tool how to work inside out. I think giving a tool of education how to be a creator in all aspects of life. It's very important. And the question is how we can share it, like what kind of tools, and how we're going to deliver those tools that the majority of people will learn, and they would change our society. You know, the society is formed from the experience or opinion of majority of population within, you know, either country or earth. Somehow people come together and agree on certain things. Okay, this is gonna be like this. This is that. This is good. This is bad. You know, it's always like labeling. And then today there are tools that can interact and go really deeper, like literally whisper, you know, to your consciousness that this is it, this is right, this is wrong. And those are basically the algorithms, all of these marketing tools. They're literally are so close to our consciousness, to our mind. They can even shape the way we believe, the way we experience this world. So we came at that edge, and it's, I think as a human being we need to reclaim that skill back. Like it's important to preserve our own skill to create. And yeah, lately I've been thinking a lot about like what are those tools. Of course, sound has less borders. Like, I think sound can travel far away. Sound could be copied, and from one part of the world you can deliver it quickly to another part of the world. And the sound, it's a sound can create, I mean, the human speech, words we say, it's very, very important. All of these creative tools that we have, something that we consume on a daily basis. If you look at it on a daily basis, like what is it of the percentage of the data that poured through internet? When you go out, if you live in the city, what are the advertisements out there? Like what kind of billboards out there? And all of that information, people who are passing, people who are on the streets, what they are wearing, what they're talking, it's all like our bodies, receptors constantly sensing that and absorbing that information, even us without knowing or being conscious about it. So that's why for the creators, I really, I think we need to have also an education how to be more conscious about the consequences, like seeing long run. If we cultivate that skill, because the creators are very gifted people. Those are like a shaman of the modern world. Creators of music, creators of movies. Like movies are being our basically holy Bible. It's the stories of the characters that being created, certain archetypes, and this is someone's imagination being manifested through light and sound and being created as a movie. And the content that we create, I think if it has more of wisdom, more of a educational content, more about nature, more about something that will awaken in people more curiosity or sense of wonder, rather than just numbing and escaping from the reality. More of a content that shows the harsh reality. Reality today is really harsh. It's painful. And moreover, as individuals, as a consumers of those contents, we also need to learn how to create a filter, like how to analyze data. Like what will go into my bones? What will be just on the surface of my skin? It's very important to not allow certain type of the content that tries to disturb and separate people, that disturbs your nerve system, not going into your bones. Therefore, it's important to come up with your own like a critical mind, the way you can operate, not just consuming and taking it in. There's so many interesting tools, and I think with AI we can use it also for education, for accelerating education. I came up with 4 courses. Your Unique Voice, where you open up voice, how to play mouth harp, that trains your breathing and also trains the way you do rhythm. Reindeer breath, it's the rhythmic throat singing, mimicking sound of reindeer, and mimicking birds and animal sounds. Those courses, they kind of have this, what I'm trying to talk about, the self-exploration and making your senses sharper. Because since I moved to the United States, I can feel that my senses became number. It's not as sharp as I was back in my homeland. I think living in the city impacted me in the way, I eat or drink a certain type of water. I mean, it's a different environment here, and of course the age also might also play a huge role, but it's not the same. It's not the same, and if I consciously do certain practices and exercises, then I can feel how I return to my childhood experience, where I was climbing and feeling so alive, so present, and then feeling this life force throughout my body. That's what we need to reclaim back, like being alive. I think with enormous consuming unnecessary data and also physical elements, it just makes us a little bit numb. Even the noise, like living in the city, the car sounds, the city sound, perhaps it's so loud that my brain takes it as a white noise and I become numb to that sound. But if I go to nature, somewhere quiet, I'm like, oh, I can feel my whole nerve system became very relaxed but my receptors, almost the hair in my skin became very like alert and sensitive, and I can feel that some of the something ancient wakes up in me, some skills that became dormant because of the modern world's impact. And so I, through music and education, through education how to express yourself in a way that you feel alive and you feel connected. Human beings are very social creatures. So I think that's our power to come together. It's survival to come together. And if we learn how to listen, how to find this inner silence where the inner voice rises up, it sings own song, if we bring it to the world and tell our stories, then we can all co-create a beautiful symphony of a song of the earth. It's more a metaphoric, poetic way of saying, but I'm positive. I believe. I hope. I believe in future generation, and I encourage people to be an example for a future generation, for our children, and humbly learn from elders who lived long enough, and humbly learn from one of the powerful, I guess the most powerful teacher that is right there, 1 arm away. It's nature. It's just comes from simple observation.
Well, that's beautifully put. Yeah, I think I agree with everything you say. It's I think that's really one of the values of tradition, and why it's so special in a way to really have a tradition and to have elders and ancestors. There's a beautiful quote by a Western, I would even call him a shaman. His name is Isaac Newton. And he said, if I've seen further than others, it's only because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. And I think that's something we often forget, kind of in our hubris, is this reverence and respect. And there's this beautiful saying, which if to believe in something or fall victim to anything. It might have even been from like a Soviet defector, but it's this idea of having a tradition, having wisdom, having a shoulder to stand on, so that in a way, we're not alone. We do have pillars. We have a strength to stand on, and I think that analogy of the knife is so beautiful. I think it's attributed to the Zen tradition, and I often quoted this idea that, as you said, the knife is a tool and it can cut everything, but the knife can never cut itself. And in the same way, the mind can never know itself. And I think AI is very beautiful, and also many people are afraid of it. And yet I think, as you beautifully said, like the one thing AI will never have is this life force, this energy, because it is something that's coming from us. And that is the most beautiful thing that we can do, is to create, to honor Creator, and to create in that image. And as you said, there's so many forces. I mean, almost shamanic forces of these archetypal battles between light and dark, and even I think we live in a time where, as you said, this marketing or media kind of propaganda or information, and so much of it is very divisive. It's very non-unifying, and I think lives in this realm of fear, which is very interesting. Kind of this Saha worldview of the lowest realm being the underworld, the place of fear, the place we have to overcome, and so I think these are really beautiful words that you express. I'm only going to ask you because in the beginning, before we started recording, you took out some instruments. Feel free to say no, but if you do feel, I mean, you play beautifully, you have some instruments there with you, and if you feel called, I know the audience would love to hear something if you feel, but only if you feel, no pressure.
Oh, I would love to share vibrations of Hummus, mouth harp that exist around the world. Again, a lot of nations, they have this tiny instrument with the same shape but made from different materials. Could be made from bones, could be made from wood, bamboo. My people make it from iron. And yeah, I would like to share with you the breath of the universe, my little universe, through this instrument. friends, little big friends.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much for coming on. I know it's getting late. Like I said earlier, I think I could talk to you for a few days. So maybe at some point in the future, it'd be wonderful to have you back on. If people are interested in learning more about you, connecting with you, learning from you, what is the best way for them to do that?
All the fresh announcements come out first on Instagram. And basically just going to snowraven.com. My online courses, 2 out of 4 are already online, and we're editing 2 more, mouth harp and reindeer breath, and by the end of this year it will come out too. So I'm very, very happy to put those online courses for the beginners to explore themselves and learn techniques that I learned from my culture, and the techniques that helps me to feel very alive and feel connected to nature that is outside, but nature also within us. So I invite you to come to snowraven.com or follow me on Instagram, Snowraven Official. And I have my music. By the way, I just released a new EP called Human. It's heavy bass music, but all the samples, all the sounds come from humans. So an amazing beatboxer, Johnny Buffalo, he created the whole beatboxing for these 3 tracks, and I've been doing Arctic beatboxing, mimicking birds and animal sounds, sing on traditional song, and played mouth harps. All of the songs, all of the sounds are very raw, comes from human's body, and it's heavy bass. It's like electronic music, and like showing the ancestry of electronic music. So I also invite you to listen to that on Apple Music or Spotify.
Well, amazing. Well, thank you so much again for coming and joining and just sharing your story, your wisdom, your culture, your music. As I said, you speak really beautifully, and I think your wisdom really comes through your words. They're very unifying words, which is a rare thing in this day and age. So thank you again. I wish you really all the best, and one day I'd love to do round 2. So whenever we can make that happen, let's try and do that.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you for Trisha for connecting us.
Yeah. All right, everyone. That's it. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. It was really a pleasure for me to sit down and connect with her. I think she has a lot of wisdom, doing really beautiful work, and just really a pleasure. As always, if you're able to support this podcast, Patreon is a beautiful way. I like the idea of websites like that because they're built off this idea of reciprocity. So if you feel like you're gaining something from this podcast, to be able to give back. Also with that, there's different tiers, and those tiers also give you all different things back, things like early access to shows, bonus material, Q&As. As always, thank you very much to the people supporting that way, and if you're able to do that, thank you in advance. If not, as always, supporting with the algorithms really helps to get the show out to a bigger audience, so liking it, sharing it, leaving comments. If you're listening on YouTube or Spotify, leaving a starred rating, a short review, and if you're viewing this on YouTube, hitting the subscribe button, turning on the notification bell, and liking the video. Also, we have an Instagram page now that we're using a lot more, so you can follow me there. It's at Jason Gorchanik, my name. And finally, if you're interested in working with myself and my colleague Marav Artsy, we have our 2026 calendar up now. We have a number of different dates, locations, so that's a beautiful opportunity to go deeper into this world of plant medicine, shamanism, these wisdom and knowledge traditions. So thank you all for tuning in. I hope this finds you all well, and I will see you all on the next episode.